I'm Jonathan Worsley, Chairman of the Bench, and I am delighted to have Fahad Kazim, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Millennium Hotels and Resorts for the Middle East and Africa, and of course CEO of Tetra Hospitality Investment as well. Welcome, Fahad. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. Lovely to be here.
Now, Fahad, just set the background a little bit about Millennium Hotels and Resorts, particularly in the Middle East and Africa, your brands, where you sit currently in the marketplace, and then I want to move on to Tetra as well.
Of course. So first of all, Millennium is a brand that came to this region in the early 2000s. So in 2002, our first property opened in Abu Dhabi. And since then, we've been on a growth and expansion spree. Right now, we sit in excess of 55 properties operating in 10 countries, and we have another 30 odd in the pipeline. And what we were really known for in the past was really operating strong city hotels, and that's where we've built a reputation with the Grand Millennium brands. But ever since probably mid 2015 and onwards, we started also expanding our offering, and we're in a very competitive market, and the needs of our guests are quite diverse. So now we started introducing additional brands to this region, including Biltmore on the luxury front, as well as more lifestyle brands such as Millennium Place, Studio M, and hopefully in the near future we'll also be launching the M Social brand.
So tell us a little bit about the M Social brand. I'm not so aware of that. What are you trying to do there?
So M Social is actually a very, very exciting brand. Globally, we have presence in all the key cities. So New York, right in the center of Times Square. We have in Paris, right next to the Opera House. New Zealand, Phuket was recently opened, Singapore, and we're really expanding that further. And soon also in London, but more details will be announced on that in the coming few months. But the brand is all about lifestyle. The brand is all about innovation, and the brand is all about really pushing the boundaries. So just as an example, back in 2019, I believe we were one of the first hotels that started operating robots in the property. So the whole purpose of that was to see how efficiently we can integrate technology into the offering while keeping guest experience at the core and center. And that was an extremely successful experiment. Since then, we're probably at version 3 right now, and that's been going quite well. Another thing we did under the brand was we launched.
Sorry, Paddy, is that...
That is front of house. That is front of house.
Interesting.
So we did it for check-in. So that's on one side. But we also do it for overnight delivery. So if you order room service, you'll have a robot come deliver your food to your door. So the idea is, how can we ensure that technology really becomes an enabler for us to better serve our guests? Another quirky experiment that we had done that was quite interesting and exciting was we also launched the first hotel on the metaverse. So there was the M Social Decentraland. And again, it's the idea is, why can't we embrace what's happening around us and see how we can put it in actual use cases? So M Social is a brand that really has a lot of fun and life right at the center, a core of its DNA. And we are hopefully going to be launching it soon in the region. I've been extremely protective on which property will be the first property to host the M Social moniker, but we are close to announcing one, hopefully at FHS or right after FHS Saudi.
Well, let's do it before FHS Saudi. We'd love to announce that. But I think it's important to be trying these things and exploring where it leads to as well, because we're all not sure. We all have to try these things. So we're going to be we've got Desi, our robot, who's going to be our MC for part of the conference in Saudi as well. She's amazing, So it's all about looking and seeing how we can use this technology to enhance the experience for our clients and everything else, and be more productive as well. How are you going to transition that sort of learning and know-how to your mainstream brands?
So I think the idea is, and very, very important to all of us, I think, in the industry, and especially to us at Millennium, is guest remains at the core of what we do. The human interaction remains at the core of what we do. So for us to have a brand where we're able to really experiment how technology can be integrated within that is very important. And if we see the benefits that come out of this, be it from a cost perspective and operational perspective, as long as, and this is the most important thing, as long as it does not impact on that guest experience, we will start looking at how we can roll it out even within the other brands. Some brands probably we will keep further away and keep technology right at the background, especially when it comes to brands like the Biltmore, where we want it to be all about the exorbitant luxury and really give that sense of luxurious product. So maybe over there it will be slightly shy of introducing those sort of technologies. But in the other brands, this becomes a great testing ground for us.
Yeah. So my experience of the Biltmore is it's luxury, as you say, but also very much focused on events as well, big event space, meeting rooms. Is that what you're developing? Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, 100%. Brand. And of course, the whole brand of Biltmore was built initially on the Hollywood story, right? The iconic Hollywood story. It was the host of the first few Oscars. So it really has a very rich history when it comes to the extravagant, when it comes to the lifestyle, when it comes to the glitz and glamour. So we really want to retain that. And this year, or actually end of last year, we celebrated the 100 years of the Biltmore brand. So it really shows the longevity of that brand and how it remained true to what it stood by back then. And we want to make sure that it retains it going forward as well.
Yeah, but it is one of those brands that hasn't really been developed yet. So it's a great brand to have in your portfolio because you can compete with I would imagine, the Waldorf Astoria at that sort of level.
Correct.
Yeah. So you've got these brands. You're looking. I think you've got 32 hotels in the pipeline in the Middle East and Africa. What is different about when you're pitching to owners? What's different when you're sitting at the table versus one of the other brands? What can you offer that the others can't?
One thing that I always say, and I'm always very proud of bringing to the table, is we're a global brand. We have presence in all the continents, so there's that reach. But very importantly, at the same time, we're a very local brand and we're a regional brand. We understand the region. We're operating from the region. We know the wants and needs of the region. So one thing that I really like to bring to the table is how do we ensure we bring to the core of our offerings the community. So we work very closely with the community when it comes to the SMEs, when it comes to the charities, when it comes to the initiatives that we launch out, when it comes to the local farms. We really work closely with the communities. This is front and center, one of our key DNA drivers, values that we're sticking by, and actually really going further into this and seeing how much more can we do to be integrated within this community. This is one. The other thing that also I find is very helpful when we have discussions with the owners is, in my other role, we also own assets. So I sit in the seat that they're sitting when it comes to discussions, understanding what is core to the owner's needs. When it comes to an owner, of course, they want to be proud of the property. They want to ensure that the service is impeccable. They want to make sure that this is a place where they can bring their friends and family and guests and be proud of what they have and what they own. But at the same time, they also want to make sure that they make a return on their investment, right? It's like any other asset class. They want to make sure that that is also adhered to. It's not one trumping the other. So this is an important thing that we also bring to the table is we know where are areas that we can potentially look at optimizing while not impacting the services and the guest experience, while at the same time, on the other end, looking at how the bottom line is also protected. So these type of conversations are really something that I felt in my year and a half in this role has been a great conversation starter with owners, because even being in the communities that they are building in, they want to make sure that we are hiring local, buying local, supporting local. So that is being adhered to, while at the same time, we have that bottom line that's in our views as well.
Yeah, no, makes great sense, and to have that arm of Tetra Hospitality Investment alongside you, and understanding the ownership side, I can see that making a great deal of sense. You've been in, as you mentioned, you've been in the job for 18 months roughly now. Before that, with KPMG Real Estate. What made you come into the hospitality industry?
I like to think of myself as a people person. So KPMG is a fantastic organization, and I think we did a lot of great things, and it's continuing to do a lot of great things. It's a global brand that's doing very well. But one thing that I missed in that role was really interacting with people. And one thing that I found in my previous roles, I was in asset management and development for the longest time in my career. And one thing that I always missed was in the hospitality sector specifically, how close-knit, how large it is, but at the same time, how close-knit it is. It is an industry where you can really make a difference when it comes to building a culture, setting a culture, really motivating teams, building strong teams, large teams, operating across geographies. So that really got me excited that there was an opportunity for me to join an organization that was doing fantastically well and that was growing at a phenomenal pace, right? But at the same time, I can put a touch on what I believe is also very important and add value and add a few more layers to what is being done. So being away from real estate, one thing attracted me to come back into it, but specifically in the hospitality sector, it was something that I really always truly admired, and probably was a little envious of the operating companies that we were dealing with in the past, and being able to be part of this fraternity, if I may, and also adding my little touch to it.
So adding your little touch to it, what have you applied from your learnings from your previous jobs at KPMG and the likes to the industry? Because, often you could argue that we all work in silos. So what have you brought? What new knowledge have you brought to the industry?
So I'll share with you, Jonathan, if I may, a pet peeve I had. Whenever I joined any meeting, I always like asking questions that are probably a little more simple. You're coming new to the industry, you want to learn from the people around you. And we had hoteliers, probably lifetime hoteliers that are in the room, and I am the odd one out that has been in the peripheries associated with the industry, but never been right within it. So I always like to ask the odd question of why is this done this way? And a pet peeve of mine was whenever the answer I used to get was because this is how hospitality is done. And it always brought a question to my mind saying, if this is how hospitality is always done, then where are all these disruptors coming from? Where are all this disruption really impacting this industry? Where did this Airbnb come years ago and blindside this industry? Is because we sometimes need to take a step back and question even the smallest things that we're doing. So the ethos that we have in the office right now is it's like an onion, right? We peel the layers and seeing what are the things that we want to retain and what are the things that we want to change or even experiment. Not everything will work, but if we don't ask these questions and if we don't push the boundaries a little bit, just because this is not how the industry has done it in the past, we will remain in our places not be able to grow. So some of the things that we're doing right now is this year we've called it internally as a year of transformation. And when it comes to transformation, people automatically think of the digital transformation, which of course is very important and something that we are applying across all touch points. But more importantly than that, it's a year of transformation of how we start thinking of hospitality as well. How can we start questioning everything that has been done in the past? Bring it out, put it front and center, have a look at it, have a long, hard look at it. And if it works, fantastic, great, we continue with it. But if it doesn't, and there are better ways of doing this, why not look at it? Why not be the first to attempt it? And again, like I said, not everything will work, but when they work very, very well. So this is a little bit of that touch I brought in, and probably is because someone gifted me a summary, and I had read the book years ago, but a summary of blue ocean strategy, and got my mind thinking again on what can we do to create our own blue ocean.
And if you set the leadership culture like that as well, then everybody contributes and they get excited by it as well. And then you get your customers behind you as well, and they give you ideas. I mean, I think the storytelling of that, what we're telling our guests at the moment, we can do so much more from both the whole experiential side, but also, the best thing we're doing at the moment is probably, hang up your towels in your room. But, we can go so much further. We can alert them at how much energy they're using, how much hot water they're using. So at least they know. And perhaps it goes on their statement as well when they check out that you've actually got a discount because you didn't use the hot water that the average person does typically, or whatever. I think there's so much we can do and play with in our industry. So tell me, Saudi's on the doorstep. We've got FHS coming around the corner, end of April. And what is it that you would be looking to get out of that event?
Honestly, every time I attend FHS, it's an eye-opener. Gives us a great opportunity to connect with our peers. One thing that I commend you and the team on is really putting together some fantastic discussions, some fantastic fireside chats that we're all able to benefit from. So for me, it's that understanding on what's happening, what's new, keeping ourselves abreast of trends, developments, ideas, and what have you. As well as technology, I think the Shark Tank that you have set up is a great way of getting us more familiar with what's out there. And the other thing is as well is also having the opportunity to build on the network and see how and where we are looking at expanding and see where the overlap is. Fortunately, like I said, when I joined, the first thing I looked at was putting together our 2030 strategy. And when we were putting together the 2030 strategy was based on the information that was available. And of course, needless to mention, Saudi is a big part of that, given the growth that's happening over there. So being closer to that market and seeing whether what we've put together and set as our strategy is still aligning and still relevant, or do we need to course correct a little bit to be able to better match the needs that are on the ground. So for me, it's an extremely important few days. And not only the few days that's there, but what happens after that on the networks that we've built up, on the relationships that we form, that becomes extremely.
Yeah, no, exactly. And just tell me a little bit about your hotels in Saudi at the moment in your pipeline.
So right now we have 8 hotels operating, 9th opening in May. In Jeddah, and we are also have a pipeline of about 20 hotels in Saudi at the moment. The strategy that we had taken, and we've been in that market quite early, I guess, in comparison to what's happening right now. And what we always did was our focus was two-tiered. The first was focusing, of course, on the established cities, Mecca, Medina, Jeddah, Riyadh, and on the Eastern Province. But what we also started looking at was how can we expand and go to the secondary cities that have a strong domestic demand. So when we went to Ha'il, Tabuk, Jizan, they were all an idea of expanding out of what is there and what is known to the international tourist and international traveler, but also what is important to the domestic market. And that is a strategy we're continuing to be true to. We remain focused on finding the opportunities of really strengthening the offerings in the secondary cities, because there is phenomenal potential. And I look at the Saudi market and I'm always amazed at the levels and segments that can be targeted, right? It's not only about the sun and sand and sea, which is there, but they also have a great cultural and historical sites that could be a great point. They have something that probably is not available in probably a handful of cities, is the religious tourism that comes in as well. And how do you keep on improving on that offering, right? Because I always say it's as much as a tap can open, that place will fill up, Mecca and Medina. However, the offering can still be improved, because today's guest is used to levels of service that are above and beyond just a typical, probably dated model of hospitality. So those are the things that we continue to look at. And for us, I think one of the key markets over the next 7 years or 6 years now for the 2030 strategy is focusing on that Saudi growth. And fortunately enough, in our pipeline, we have that great mix between the two that is able to give us a great stability of focusing on the international as well as that domestic demand.
Yeah, no, it's one of the most exciting markets in the world at the moment. So, and we're certainly seeing it at the conference with all these new PIF projects that are being announced. I had a call with Dan Company and what they're doing by looking at farm lodges. There's lots of innovation going on. Asfar, of course, and the regional market, looking at how they're developing. So no, I think that makes huge sense, that whole focus there on the regional markets. Looking at these developments, though, are we moving quick enough? I mean, for example, this week in Paris, there's 50,000 people getting together for this event called Change Now, which I only just heard about the other day, which is an extraordinary event about how do we change and bringing all industries together. I'm going to Ufi's event, Ufi Ibrahim, who runs the EEA, tomorrow on the whole energy side, working with King's College. And then you've got the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance as well, who are running their events. We're all trying to change as quickly as possible. Fahad, if we can just move into the whole issue of sustainability, and it looks like you're doing an awful lot when it comes to that innovation piece. How are you using that innovation, and how are you moving towards being a more sustainable company going forward?
Thank you for asking that question, Jonathan. And again, this is one of the projects that we've been working on in the background for a few months now. And we launched at the back end of last year, in December of last year, during COP28, which was hosted here in the UAE in Dubai. We launched our Millennium Green Playbook, and it focuses on our sustainability drive. And again, I always say that sustainability is no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. It should be embedded in everything that we do. Right after we announced the sustainability programs, we also signed an agreement with the Story Group, where we'll be planting 100,000 trees over the next 5 years. And that gesture is to really show our commitment to our sustainability story. No pun intended, the Story Group. But it's something that we really are looking at doubling down on. And what I liked about the Story Group's program was it also gives an opportunity, not only us as Millennium from a corporate perspective, but as well as the hotels. It also gives an opportunity for our guests to be part of that program. And what they do is they will have an app where they can track the tree that has been planted for them, track how much CO2 has been saved and what have you. So in its entirety, that program will really make the guests feel an important, integral part of what we're trying to do. But this is just one of the programs that we've launched. The second program that we really focused on, and again, we spoke about it a little earlier, was how do we source local? And it's unbelievable what we start looking at and the amount of savings that we can do by just looking at sourcing local. The amount of CO2 we save on the logistics, and the amount of food wastage that we save on, the amount of jobs that we create locally. It really has a very large impact. So we also signed a deal with a procurement platform last year, Watermelon, where we started looking at purchasing most of our fruits and vegetables as much as possible locally. So this is another initiative that we really spearheaded from our side. The third thing that we started doing was also focusing on attracting local talent and building that local industry around hospitality. And as you may know very well, in certain parts of this region, hospitality has never been served by its own locals. And this is something that, again, we're starting to look at by building our Millennium Academy program, focusing on management trainee programs. Both in Saudi and UAE, we've launched as the pilot projects, and we're going to push it through the entire region that we start serving. So a lot of these initiatives are integral to what we do. And I'll add a couple more. I don't want to go into too much detail because I can keep on talking about this for the next 4 hours. We're also looking at what we can do. Zero plastic. This is, again, a no-brainer. This is something that we've already also embarked on. We're starting across country to country, going across and seeing how we can eliminate plastic entirely. We also started looking at what is the biggest waste in hotels, which is the food waste, and how can we convert that food waste into compost and make sure that it becomes beneficial rather than ending up in a landfill and adding to the problem that is there. And also when it comes to cooking oil reusage and using it as biofuel. So we have come up across with a very, very robust program. We have a committee sitting in the corporate office of 7 individuals. And I'm really proud to say none of these 7 individuals were appointed. They're all volunteered to be part of this. Because that is, I believe, the most important thing. If it's coming from the heart, it's nothing better than that. So these are the type of programs that we're looking at. And change now is definitely a message that we all hear loud and clear.
Yeah, well, we could trip up massively as together we could trip up, but also individually we could trip up if we're not on track on this as well. Well, wonderful initiatives. And Fahad, I can see we've been going on for a while, but really interesting getting to know a little bit more about your values, and they come through massively. Love what you're doing. Really exciting. Look forward to seeing you, of course, in Saudi. And what's so great is having an Emirati leader as well running this fabulous company. So congratulations for that,
Jonathan,
as well.
Thank you so much. It was lovely having this conversation with you.
Great. Okay. And very much look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.